It is my pleasure to introduce our second presenter of the day and two very special guests. First, I'd like to welcome Trevor Fencott, founder and CEO of Fire Flower Holdings. Trevor has been a visionary for the Canadian cannabis retail industry, who very early on identified the cannabis retail opportunity. He has guided Fire Flower from inception to the current position as the largest corporate-owned retail store network in Canada, with more than 75 corporate-owned dispensaries. Trevor has also prepared Fire and Flower for the next stage of cannabis retail, having acquired and developed a comprehensive digital high-fire platform, which positions Fire and Flower as a leading cannabis retailer in terms of delivering an immersive, digitally enabled retail 2.0 experience. I'd also like to welcome to the call today, Stéphane Trudel, a director of Fire and Flower and also SVP of Operations at Alimentation Couche-Tard. Stéphane, we look forward to hearing your unique insights on how Fire Flower and Couche-Tard can continue to work strategically together to unlock value for shareholders. With that, I'd like to turn the call over to Trevor. You may begin.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Thanks for having us here. And I'm very excited to be able to talk today, but also to have Stéphane Trudel with me. As you mentioned, he's not only the SVP of Operations at Alimentation Couche-Tard, Circle K, our strategic investor and partner, but also a member of our board. So what I'm going to do today is actually do a bit of a page flip through our deck. We did a recent update, but I want to focus a lot of time on being able to answer questions, because I think a key part of our story is our success through partnership and our strategic partnership. So I want to make sure people have an opportunity to ask not just myself, but also Stéphane about the company and the exciting opportunities that we see in the future. So to kick it off, we are Canada's largest multi-brand cannabis retailer, serving customers across diverse segments. Our origin story really was as a dedicated next-gen retailer. So, we built the company from the ground up to compete when competition was extremely fierce. So we didn't pivot from another space into retail or into cannabis. We took the time to kind of figure out what would we need to do to compete at the highest levels against the apex predators like Amazon, or when competition becomes fierce, how would we be able to manage that? And so we built the company as a tech-forward, a tech-driven, next-gen retailer that's in the cannabis space. So our value proposition essentially is that we use our proprietary high-fire digital retail and analytics platform to make sure that our customers are fully engaged. And we have two groups of customers. We view, like most next-gen retailers, we view our customer groups as the people that come into our stores, our retail customers, but also our vendor partners as customers as well. Because the role of next-gen retailers is to effectively service your customers most effectively by getting deep engagement with them, anticipating, understanding their needs, and providing innovative service offerings to them, but also to take that information and take that understanding and help your vendor partners create better products for them, provide different experiences for them that generates ultimately kind of loyalty and almost a twin flywheel type model. So that's really kind of a key part of our value proposition. Digitally engaged customers are more loyal, they spend more in our store, and ultimately have a higher lifetime value, which is key. The platform itself for us delivers high margin recurring subscription revenue in terms of our data and analytics platform. And it actually adds value to our acquisitions by being able to essentially deploy high-fire into new acquisitions when we take them over. So we know that this is going to be a very aggressive growth play, not just in Canada, but in the US and any market that we're going to enter. So for us, a key part of it was building the digital and technological infrastructure so that when we acquire something, we have something to plug in immediately to understand the consumer groups that are coming to that store and make the acquisition more valuable. So the second part of our value prop is really the strategic investment by Alimentation Couche-Tard, which is the owner of Circle K stores. And this will actually fuel a lot of our internal, but also international growth opportunities. And then a strong balance sheet, which is sort of, I think, the table stakes, but it is important to have the necessary capital and expertise to be able to deliver on these very ambitious growth plans. So on this slide, we've got positioned to become a leading cannabis retailer. Again, talks about high fire, which I want to go into in more detail a little later. and our demonstrated aggressive growth plan. And then of course, we'll talk about Alimentation Couche-Tard. I want to make sure that I've got this, this PowerPoint under control. Okay. So for our aggressive growth plan, sort of the highlights here, we achieved positive adjusted EBITDA, which is very, very important. And I think as kind of a comment across all the participants in this panel, one of the things that I agree very much with Andrew about is the retail sector is often overlooked. As we talk about the higher upstream participants, like the licensed producers, and of course, having been a licensed producer myself, like this is important, but really, I think we've been overlooked as a sector that has achieved almost broadly positive adjusted EBITDA, more so than our other industry peers in the licensed production space. So it's really important achievement, not just for myself, but for our other panelists as well. We've got 75 plus operating corporately owned retail stores across Canada. It is important to us that we own the store because obviously that allows us to realize the earnings per store more effectively. And it's our view that by having that kind of intimate control and that ability to relate to our customers directly through kind of corporate-owned stores, that's actually an advantage. So again, Hi-Fire for us has been a very, very critical part of our aggressive growth plan. Our Spark Perks membership program has almost positively, actually more than 220,000 people, but it grows at a pretty good clip, probably adding about 2,000 or 3,000 a week. So we expect that growth to continue. And then of course, Open Fields, which is something we haven't talked a lot about as a company. It is the engine, little engine that could in Saskatchewan. It delivers a tremendous amount of top line revenue to us, gives us a very large market share in that market, which is actually the most efficient market in Canada. In the sense that we can do direct deals with licensed producers and leverage some of our scale and the asymmetrical price compression that we're seeing in terms of overproduction. We can also do delivery to customers. We can do full e-commerce, and of course have our own corporately owned retail stores there. So again, very important part of our plan. You can see here as well that we did 85 million in revenue up to Q3. We haven't released our Q4 results, but definitely stay tuned there because we have continued to succeed. And again, one thing that I do want to focus on in this particular presentation is the continued expansion of our relationship with Alimentation Couche-Tard and Circle K. So, I mean, for those of you who haven't heard of Circle K or Alimentation Couche-Tard, they are a very large multi-billion-dollar market cap company with operations in 16,000 stores in 25 countries. So very, very good at what they do. And of course, we'll go through a little bit of our strong governance and our board of directors, because I do believe that that's going to be one of the themes that we see played out as this next generation of businesses is built in cannabis. Is governance is going to be key. So you can see here that we've got 77 stores across these 4 banners. For us, having multiple banners is an important part of our strategy, because what we realized being a data-driven retailer was, as we looked at our customers and we compared it against the illegal market and entrants, we realized that there's isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all solution to cannabis retail. It's unlikely. We have about 50 archetypes of cannabis customers. Probably 8 to 10 of those are the ones that most retailers are going to focus on in terms of being very high value. But we also know that even our Fire Flower brand itself indexes heavily to sort of 4 and possibly 5 if we get our marketing really down. But we're not going to hit all 10 of those archetypes. So it is going to be important to offer different experiences to different customers. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach in our view. And so things like acquiring Friendly Stranger, which is really geared towards cannabis enthusiasts. It's sort of one of the longest, very storied and historical institutions in Canada and in cannabis, 25-year operating history, and things like Hotbox, which again, operating in Toronto's Kensington market is a real sort of iconic landmark. It really kind of speaks to a different consumer. So knowing that we're not going to hit everything with one brand, it was important for us to kind of branch out there. All right, so yeah, Hi-Fire platform. Our Hi-Fire platform really is the nuts and bolts, the bones of kind of what we're doing. And one of the earliest things we did, the first acquisition we actually made, was we acquired a technology company, which some people thought was a little odd given that we were trying to be a retailer. But our hypothesis really is that look at the best in breed retailers, the ones that can compete with Amazon, that are thriving in an otherwise kind of very challenging retail market, and figure out what they're doing. And they all viewed themselves as technologically native. They weren't bricks and mortar that sort of bolted on a technology solution or purchased something off the shelf. They really viewed themselves as technically native. So this was very, very important to us. And we use our tech to drive this deep engagement with our retail and vendor customers and increase their value across the supply chain. But two, it provides incremental high margin revenue for us. So you'll notice in our financials, when they come out, we actually have a line for digital revenue, and I think it's investors should be looking at that line to see that there's sort of cumulative quarter over quarter of growth there, because that's the health of that very high margin revenue subscription based data business. So, and then the third, and this is probably the most important given all the recent activity in the U.S. with the Democratic clean sweep, is we knew from the beginning that we were going to use this to create sustainable competitive advantage in our operating model that could be leveraged for expansion to international markets. And it didn't always have to be international. We sort of started and we looked at it on a provincial basis, but it's about entering new markets. And our real work here was to get a model, use Canada, just like the licensed producers did one generation back, but use Canada, and in particular for us, Saskatchewan, as a model of what what the optimal operating model is, really hone in on this. And for us, it is kind of this hub and spoke model that's tied together with technology and also offers things like delivery. So it's really wrapping the customer in this experience, but with a hub and spoke type model. So instead of sort of one store fits all, we believe firmly that it's going to take a number of different types of stores and store formats to properly service the market as it evolves. All right, so open fields distribution for us, again, we bet very heavily on Saskatchewan very early on, and are quite happy with that investment because we started from scratch there, built our own warehouse, built our own distribution infrastructure. We have exclusive product agreements with most of the large licensed producers, which we can offer to our customers. So we know that product offering and product differentiation does matter. We see it in Saskatchewan. And again, because we moved so aggressively and so early, we are clearly in the pole position there, and it allows us to even get insight onto, we're selling to third-party retailers as well, the moms and pops. So it gives us a lot of information and a lot of market intelligence in order to grow our business there. So I wanted to bear down a little bit more and talk about the Hi-Fire platform itself. So this not only provides our deep understanding of consumer behavior and the brand preferences, it allows us also again to have an independent high margin revenue stream, which is very important. And again, aggregation value here is as we acquire things, we can put Hi-Fire into it and almost immediately through implementation, understand who the customers that go to that store are, where we might be able to optimize them, where they might fit in different parts of our branded network, and how to better service them. So it's a pretty important part of our strategy. If you look at us as a tech-enabled retailer, we've got sort of 4 blocks of our tech that are independently productized. So some of these are sold independently and monetized. So for example, Hi-Fire Reach is a very advanced part of our platform that allows us to bring people into the cannabis ecosystem legally by using outside channels, digital channels, because the real key in Canada, at least, is we are not able to talk to consumers outside our ecosystem very effectively. So that was a key technical engineering feat that we were able to accomplish really because we just looked at the environment. We have a company that has 25 engineers that really just sort of thinks about these problems. We solve the problem by creating Hi-Fire Reach. Hi-Fire One is our advanced in-store sort of advanced digital retailing platform, controls every part of our store aspects. It helps us also optimize staffing. It allows us to run our store as media, which is important to a next-gen retailer. And then of course we've got Spark Perks, which allows us again to have this deep relationship with our customers. And I think that was so critical to our success in 2020 with COVID, because we started with such a large lead in terms of this direct engagement. When the environment shut down, we were able to keep communicating with our customers, and we've seen a lot of growth there as well. And of course, Hi-Fire IQ, which is probably most familiar to many people, on this call is our data and analytics platform, which not only provides us within market intelligence on how to better develop our house brand products, but also it powers a lot of external customers that are not in the cannabis ecosystem. So we monetize this beyond the walls of licensed producers. This is something that actually is used by the Bank of Montreal, CIBC. Like these are customers that are beyond the cannabis ecosystem, and that's important because we need to hedge wherever we can. So you can see here again, Hi-Fire IQ, Reach, and One are all sort of core parts of our platform. You can see here Spark Perks is also, we talked about that. It continues to grow at a very, very brisk clip. And IQ here, you can see, is something that, again, dynamic reporting is very, very important. This is stuff that we get in real time. So we can action this intelligence in real time. It's not a report that we then analyze. It's an actual database that we manage and an actual piece of infrastructure that does require a lot of engineering, but it's well worth it. So I want to kind of wrap this by we're talking a lot about the Couche-Tard Circle K strategic relationship, because I do want to open it up to questions. So Couche-Tard is obviously very, very important partner of ours. They currently are an equity holder in the company. And what I want to focus on here is not so much the mechanics. Everyone can go to our website and to take a look at the ownerships and warrants and all these different things. But I think they need to understand our shared vision with Couche-Tard and Circle K, which we have in Circle K a partner that clearly understands effective and efficient operations. They understand international operations. We share a vision that Canada is not the only market. They're a global company. We want to be a global company too, and we know we need a partner to do that. And that was sort of part of our initial alignment. But it's also an alignment on where we think cannabis goes in the 10-year or the long-term future, which is ultimately once you've competed with the illegal market on price, which I think we're kind of getting there, and you can then compete effectively on product selection, which we're seeing with 2.0 and possibly 3.0 products. You come down to the last domain to competition really is convenience. And I'm not saying that cannabis is sold in a convenience store. I'm saying it has to be convenient to its consumers. And that's where you really need to think carefully about how you are building your distribution infrastructure and your network. You need to do it planfully using data, but you also need to have a partner that can help you achieve that goal. So I will flip here because I think this is probably the most important slide of this part, which is looking at our Couche-Tard relationship catalysts. And you can see we started it in July of 2019. And since that time, they've been an excellent financial partner for us. But more importantly, and this is all, by the way, in our public releases, our press releases, I just think there's a lot of noise in the space. So it's worth taking this opportunity to kind of point it out and put it into chronology. That if you look at in July 2020, we actually announced that we started a pilot program co-locating Fire Flower stores with Circle K stores. We have 2 of these in Alberta, and we're very pleased with the results on those. So that has actually happened. It's been happening for more than half a year now, and we've got the results of that pilot program in. So this is an important way to think about how we think about cannabis and ultimately cannabis retail. And then, of course, in January last month, again, lots of noise in the system, but we announced that with our partner that actually the Fire Flower gift cards are being sold in third-party locations, including 300 Circle K locations. So we have a retail network of 75 stores across Canada, and then we've got compliant gift cards in 300 additional locations. So that has to be a positive in terms of getting outreach up there. We know for a fact that obviously when you're gifted something or given something, it's a very, very high value referral. So that's kind of how we think about engaging customers and broadening the sphere to the kind of the echo chamber of cannabis and traditional channels. So I think with that, actually, instead of additional materials, actually, I will take one moment to just highlight our board, because I think it is important. We got a lot of executive bench strength, but if you look at our board of directors, again, very, very blue chip. We're very, very pleased, to have like the chair of our Governance and Compensation Committee is obviously Nora Minkster, former commissioner of the RCMP. You can see that Don Wright, our lead director there, is former chairman, CEO of TD Securities, and our executive chair, my partner Harvey, CEO of Dynacare and director of Emblem. So a lot of bench strength here, including, of course, Stéphane, who is on as well, which provides a lot of that retail bench strength to our board. So with that, I think I will go back and just open it up to questions, because I think that's going to be what is on people's minds.
Great. Thank you very much, Trevor. We're now going to open it up for questions. Audience members, you can continue asking questions in the Q&A function on Zoom and on the YouTube live stream. I'm going to start off here with one from me, and I want to start with a recent announcement. This morning, Fire & Flower announced you completed an at-the-market financing, having raised gross proceeds of $15 million. With the extra cash you now have on hand, where do you see the most attractive opportunities to continue investing and growing your platform in the next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're very happy to have completed that. That's obviously very cost-effective capital for us, and we're glad that we've been able to move through the process. I think that, similar to what Darren was indicating as well, we're going to see a lot of growth in Canada over the next 2 years, clearly. So it's very attractive to build stores. It's always, attractive. You can build them from the ground up. But I think we're going to see some other opportunities as well. And for us, the focus really is to do the things that we can be best in the world at. And one of those is our tech platform. So I would expect some of that to be invested in expanding our lead in that particular thing and expanding into some other sort of lucrative areas there. But also it's going to be into good old-fashioned store growth, because that is a huge revenue driver for us.
That's great. And in your presentation, you touched upon many of the things that Fire & Flower and Couche-Tard have taken and have done together over the past year to enhance your strategic alignment. My question to you and to Stéphane is, where do you see future opportunities to continue to work more closely together and unlock value for shareholders?
All right, well, maybe I'll go first, Stéphane, and you can finish that thought. I think that clearly we have a vision, a shared vision for U.S. and other markets. So as those things develop, we do see collaboration there. I think there are other ways when you look at Circle K and Alimentation Couche-Tard as a large retailer. There's other sort of ways that we can collaborate. We happen to have a pretty innovative tech platform as well. And so, again, aside from just sort of retail and other markets, I think there's some other things there that we'll keep to ourselves for now, but those two are pretty big opportunities. So maybe Stéphane?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. As Trevor said, we've been pretty much strategically aligned since the beginning of this relationship. So we've seen the market evolve in Canada, in the US, and in other countries. So we'll continue looking at every opportunity and see how we can best take what we can bring to the table. Namely, we've got a lot of real estate in key locations across not only the US, but a lot of other markets in the world that eventually will legalize. So I think going forward, that's certainly something we'll want to leverage, is looking at our real estate. Also, we have a presence in all these markets with boots on the ground. We know the customers, we know what they buy on an age-restricted level with alcohol, cigarettes. So I think continuing to work together, sharing experiences, sharing customer behavior, and sharing our expertise, and finding the right location, because it's always good and easier to have success when you're in a monopoly situation. But once it becomes competitive, location is key. So I think there's a lot there we can do. Trevor talked about the co-located stores. I think that's, for us, that was a key test we wanted to do early, so that we could see how customers behave to that and how we should adapt it should we want to pursue that in other markets.
That's great. Thank you. Trevor, in your presentation, you hinted at it. Stéphane, in your remarks just now, you hinted at it. The legal cannabis market is not confined to just Canada. There's a large international opportunity there. How can Fire and Flower expand into international markets? Which international markets are you looking at? And how can Couche-Tard offer strategic support as you go internationally?
Again, I'll maybe start it, and Stéphane, you can add there. But I think that from the get-go, we've always known it's going to be a global opportunity. So we've been watching every market pretty carefully. If we've done something, I think really well, it's watch the regulatory environments, not just in the U.S. but in places like Australia, Israel, Poland. Like we're very much have a global vision on that. And we certainly, from Fire Flower's perspective, we identified early on that to go to these other markets, you would need to have a partner that understood those local markets, understood the real estate in those local markets, and had the sort of necessary on the ground experience and patronage in those places. To be operating natively is a huge advantage in those places. So in terms of the US market in particular, because I know that's on people's mind, obviously I think it's reasonable to assume that we've been thinking about that for quite some time. And to the extent that we're able to do things there, I think it's reasonable to assume we'll be rolling that out. But as was pointed out, there are impediments to that. I think more importantly, though, is to master our operating model, to master the hub spoke digital, delivery-based, customer-facing model, so that the model is bulletproof. So no matter what model, so in what market we enter, we're entering with a very strong first foot. So if we have to wait a little bit, we are a very, very competitive environment here in Canada, much more so actually than any other market. Alberta was a good example because that is worse than, it's more competitive than Colorado, and we're succeeding there. So let's hone our model, and that's going to be a big advantage to us.
That's great color. Thank you. When you look at Hi-Fire, it's obviously a very exciting opportunity. It's a comprehensive digital platform with plenty of potential. Last quarter showed a big leap forward in commercializing that platform. Trevor, could you talk to the platform, how the platform continues to expand in 2021, and what investors should look for in terms of commercial opportunities? And of course, Stéphane, perhaps you would also like to add some color on your perspective on the Hi-Fire platform.
Yeah, why don't you start this one, Stéphane, and I'll kind of add the stuff on the end.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you go back when we connected with Fire and Flower, that's really what got us excited about Fire and Flower, is how much we're advanced versus a lot of the competition, and even comparing it to our core business today that grew through acquisitions over time. Having the capability to start from scratch with a platform that grows with you and that you can evolve because you control it, I think is a key strategic advantage of Fire and Flower, and it probably goes, I wouldn't say unnoticed, but undervalued. And as the Fire and Flower moves forward, whether it's in Canada or in the US, I think we'll see. We're just, I think, scratching the tip of the iceberg. The growth at which it's capturing new customers, new Spark Perks members, the value of these customers versus others, and the fact that these are all age-gated customers that you can talk to in a market where it's extremely difficult to talk to age-gated customers. I think there's a lot of value there that has yet to get unlocked. Right now, I think the focus is getting building profitable stores, but that underlying capability that Fire and Flower has, I think will eventually emerge, and we'll see a lot more value there.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't add much to that. That's exactly it. It's the ability to make new things as they emerge, because we own the capability is absolutely key. Hi-Fire Reach, we created this year almost in response to the pandemic, so yeah, I think that's a good summary, Stéphane.
Thank you guys very much for that. And we got time for one last quick question here. So just looking ahead to 2021, what catalyst should we look forward to? What's most important in your mind? And we got quite a few people asking about whether US exchange uplisting is possible. If you could comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that investors should expect that we're looking at all opportunities, that we're very aware of the U.S. opportunity and thinking about it constantly, and that we'll make the right strategic decisions for our shareholders. I would say key catalysts for us are, you have to have a U.S. strategy, right? And so to the extent that we start rolling that out and start explaining that, I think that people should look at that for all companies, not just ours. People need to have a U.S. strategy as a catalyst. I think another catalyst, though, for us would be how we evolve our digital platform. I think, I would hope people pay attention to those press releases. And then the other part is, for us, a catalyst is increasing this engagement with Couche-Tard. That's what I would say kind of the three catalysts are. I don't know, Stéphane, do you have a different view or take on that?
Well, obviously, I think the biggest catalyst for sure would be what's going to happen in the U.S., how it's going to happen, and how can every retailer in Canada get involved in the retail market. So I think Fire & Flower, just like anybody else presenting today, is prepared for different scenarios of what's going to happen in the U.S., and that's certainly going to be the biggest catalyst. The second one is probably the consolidation of the Canadian market that I think at some point will likely happen, as a few big players today have emerged, but I'm sure there's more consolidation over time that's going to happen as retailers get more and more sophisticated, and customers expect a certain level of service. So I think there's going to be those two catalysts to look at.
Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you very much, Trevor and Stéphane, for joining us today. Excellent comments on the business, excellent comments on the industry, and we look forward to watching you in 2021. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.